Researchers used a beam of light to bring back a memory that was supposed to be gone forever. Not recovered in a fuzzy kind of sort of way, the mouse froze in fear, responding to a specific environment it had learned to be afraid of as an infant. Months earlier, a memory that had completely vanished from its behavior by every normal measure. The memory had been sitting there the whole time. We just didn't have the key to get to it. That detail is going to matter a lot by the end of this video because it completely reframes the question we started with. And there's one piece of this, something nobody ever mentions, that I want to save for last because it changes how you think about forgetting entirely. So here's what we're actually covering. Why you can't remember being a baby, what science has gotten wrong about it for decades, and what the newest research is saying instead. This touches neuroscience, psychology, and a cross-cultural finding that genuinely surprised researchers. I've pulled from a 2025 study published in Science, mouse engram experiments, and work from Cornell that most people have never heard of. Let's get into it. The explanation you've probably heard is that babies just can't form memories. The hippocampus, the part of the brain most tied to saving experiences, is still developing, so nothing gets recorded. Makes sense on the surface. The problem is that a major study published in March 2025 in the journal Science directly tested that assumption and found the opposite. The Yale research team, led by Tristan Yates and senior author Nick Turk-Browne, studied 26 infants between 4 months and 2 years old. Until this study, pairing observations of infants with brain imaging had been out of reach, because babies are famously uncooperative when it comes to sitting still inside an fMRI machine. So the team built a workaround. A parent could stand nearby and interact with their child during scanning, while researchers watched the child's memories form in real time. In the experiment, the 26 children viewed a series of faces, objects, and scenes while in the scanner. After 20 to 100 seconds, they saw the same images again, alongside a collection of new ones. When an infant's hippocampus was more active upon seeing an image the first time, they were more likely to appear to recognize that image later. The hippocampus wasn't too immature to encode memories. The findings published in Science indicate that memories can indeed be encoded in our brains in our first years of life. Researchers had long believed we don't hold on to these experiences because the hippocampus is still developing and just can't encode memories in our earliest years. That was the textbook answer. And it's wrong, or at least it's seriously incomplete. The study suggests infantile amnesia might actually be a memory retrieval problem, meaning the memories are going in, we just lose the ability to get them back out. Now there's an even wilder piece of evidence for this, and it comes from mice. This is the one I mentioned at the start, and it's worth slowing down on. Hippocampus-dependent memories formed in early infancy are rapidly forgotten. Researchers found that high levels of hippocampal neurogenesis contribute to accelerated rates of forgetting during infancy, and they wanted to know whether these memories are permanently erased or whether they just become progressively inaccessible. So Sheena Jocelyn and Paul Franklin's team tagged the exact neurons that were active when infant mice learned to fear a specific environment. Then they waited. Behaviorally, the memory was gone. The mice showed no sign of fear when placed back in that environment. But then researchers used optogenetics, a technique where you use light to activate specific neurons, and they fired up those same tagged cells. Optostimulation induced freezing, indicating that reactivation of the neuronal ensembles active during initial encoding was sufficient to recover the memory even at very remote time points. The memory was there the whole time. It wasn't erased, it was just unreachable by normal means. And a follow-up study pushed this even further. Researchers rescued apparently forgotten infantile memories in mice by optogenetically reactivating engram cells labeled during complex experiences in infancy, and then permanently reinstated lost infantile memories by artificially updating the memory engram, demonstrating that infantile amnesia is a reversible process. So we now have direct, mechanistic proof that infant memories aren't deleted. They're locked. The question is why they get locked in the first place, and that answer is something most people have never heard. The leading suspect is neurogenesis. The infant brain is growing new neurons in the hippocampus at an absolutely massive rate, far faster than an adult brain does. And that flood of new neurons appears to physically rewire the circuits holding the older memories before those memories can fully stabilize. High levels of hippocampal neurogenesis contribute to accelerated rates of forgetting during infancy. The brain is building so fast that it's essentially overwriting its own filing system before the files are saved properly. Here's a piece of evidence for that theory that almost nobody talks about. In some animals that are born much more developmentally mature, like guinea pigs, most of their neuron generation happens before birth, not after. And those animals largely don't show the same forgetting pattern infants do. But when researchers artificially boosted neurogenesis in those animals after learning, the amnesia appeared. That's a pretty direct line between the rate of new neuron growth and the loss of early memories. Keep that in mind because I'm going to come back to it at the end in a way that reframes the whole thing. Here's where it gets even more interesting, and this is the part that genuinely surprised me when I first came across it. The question of why you can't remember being a baby isn't just a brain question, it's also a culture question. Psychologist Chi Wang at Cornell asked 119 American and 137 native Chinese college students to describe their earliest childhood memories. She found that Americans on average cite their earliest memories back to about age 3.5, while Chinese participants, on average, recall their earliest memories from approximately 6 months later. 6 months is a real, measurable gap, and it's not explained by brain biology because the brains are the same. The difference is in what the memories look like, too. Americans often report lengthy, specific, emotionally elaborate memories that focus on the self as a central character, while Chinese participants tend to give brief accounts of general routine events that center on collective activities and are often emotionally neutral. Wang's argument is that autobiographical memory, the kind where you are the main character of your own past, is tied to the development of a self-concept, and that self-concept is shaped by culture. Individualistic cultures push children to build a personal narrative around themselves earlier, and that narrative-building process appears to be what anchors memories in a way that makes them retrievable later. In a related study, Wang and colleagues asked American and Chinese mothers to talk with their 3-year-olds about shared past events. American mothers and children used a more elaborative, independent conversational style in which mother and child elaborated on each other's responses and focused on the child's personal opinions, roles, and feelings. These findings suggest that children's early social linguistic experiences shape their autobiographical remembering and may contribute to cultural differences in the age and content of earliest childhood memories. So the conversations you had with your parents as a toddler may have literally shaped which memories you can access today. That's not a small thing. And while we're here, there's one more wrinkle worth knowing. That earliest memory you have, there's a real chance it's not a genuine retrieved memory at all, because early autobiographical memories are reconstructed, not played back like a recording. A significant number of people's earliest memories are provably inaccurate. People confidently recall events from before age 2, which developmental research suggests is a period when reliable autobiographical encoding hasn't stabilized yet. That memory was probably built later from photos, family stories, or someone else's account, and your brain just filled in the rest. As Turk-Browne himself noted, the hallmark of these types of memories, which we call episodic memories, is that you can describe them to others, but that's off the table when you're dealing with preverbal infants. And that's actually a methodological problem that ran through most of the 20th century of research on this topic. If your primary test for whether a memory exists is asking someone to describe it verbally, you've already excluded every preverbal subject by design. For decades, researchers may have concluded babies had no memories largely because their testing method couldn't apply to babies in the first place. So let's put the pieces together, because here's where we actually are. The brain was forming memories all along. Most assume that the hippocampus was too immature in infancy to support episodic memories. But the new Yale research challenges that directly. The mice experiments show that forgotten infant memories are still physically present in the brain, just inaccessible. Culture shapes how early your accessible memories start and what they look like. And your earliest memory might be a reconstruction your brain built later, not a genuine retrieval from back then. 4 different angles on the same phenomenon, and none of them is the simple, "your brain wasn't ready yet" answer most people have heard. If this kind of thing genuinely interests you, and you want to understand how your brain actually works, not just the oversimplified version, Subscribe and stick around. There's a video on how memory gets distorted every time you recall it that connects directly to what we just covered here. And it's one of the most unsettling things I've made. Drop a comment below with your earliest memory and how old you think you were. I'm genuinely curious whether the cultural angle holds up in the comments. Now here's the thing I saved for last. And this is the part that reframes everything. High levels of hippocampal neurogenesis contribute to accelerated rates of forgetting during infancy. But that same neurogenesis-driven forgetting mechanism also operates in the adult hippocampus, just at a much lower rate. Forgetting via new neuron growth isn't a bug exclusive to infancy. It's a background process running your whole life, just turned up to an extreme volume when you're small. And here's the part researchers have proposed that I think is the most interesting idea in this whole space. That extreme forgetting during infancy might not be a flaw at all. Rapid neurogenesis is essential for the explosive rate of new learning that happens in early childhood. Learning to walk, learning language, learning to recognize faces and objects in social relationships. The cost of having that much raw learning capacity might simply be that you can't hold on to the specific memories formed at the same time. The brain traded memory for learning speed. And given how much you learned before age 3, that might have been exactly the right trade. You just weren't going to remember making it.